The Sacred Pelican, From Ancient Egypt to Secret Societies. Introduction. A bird that bleeds for her children. Picture a mother pelican standing in her nest, stabbing her own breast with her beak until blood flows, then feeding that blood to her dying chicks to bring them back to life. This striking image, known as the pelican in her piety, has haunted Western spirituality for thousands of years. While most people recognize it vaguely as a Christian symbol, the pelican's story runs much deeper. This isn't just about Jesus and the Eucharist. The trail leads back to ancient Egyptian tombs, through medieval alchemist laboratories where gold was supposedly created, and into the hidden rituals of Freemasonry's most mysterious degrees. The pelican represents something profound. The idea that transformation requires sacrifice, that life must be poured out to create new life. Part 1, Where the Myth Came From. The real bird and the mistake that changed everything. Real pelicans don't actually wound themselves, but you can see why people thought they did. When pelicans feed their young, they press their massive beaks hard against their chests to squeeze up the half-digested fish from their throat pouches. To someone watching from a distance, especially during breeding season when the pelican's chest feathers show a reddish tinge, it looks exactly like the bird is stabbing itself and the chicks are drinking blood. There's more. Pelicans have heavy beaks, so when resting, they often tuck them into their chest feathers for support. And pelican chicks can be aggressive little beasts. They'll strike at their parents' faces demanding food, sometimes violently enough that the parent strikes back. These three behaviors, the feeding motion, the resting posture, and the aggressive chicks, combine to create one of history's most powerful myths. The story gets written down. Around the 2nd century AD in Alexandria, Egypt, someone compiled a book called the Physiologus. This wasn't a science textbook, it was a guide to reading nature as a religious parable. The Physiologist tells the pelican story in 4 dramatic acts. Act 1, Rebellion. The baby pelicans attack their parents' faces. Act 2, Punishment. The parents strike back and kill the chicks. Act 3, Mourning. The mother grieves for 3 days. Act 4, Resurrection. On the 3rd day, the mother pierces her breast and her blood brings the dead chicks back to life. This story spread like wildfire through medieval Europe. By the 1200s, every educated person knew it. The pelican appeared everywhere, carved into church walls, painted in manuscripts, embroidered on bishops' robes. In literature and art, Dante called Christ our pelican in the Divine Comedy. When he describes the Apostle John leaning on Jesus at the Last Supper, he writes about resting upon the bosom of our pelican. Shakespeare used the darker side of the myth. In King Lear, the king calls his greedy daughters pelican daughters, implying they're draining his life's blood for their own benefit. The image cuts both ways. Generosity from the parent's view, but potentially parasitism from the child's perspective. Part 2, The Egyptian Origins, Death, Tombs and the Sun God. The Christian pelican myth didn't appear out of nowhere. It has roots in ancient Egypt that go back over 4,000 years. Henet, the pelican goddess in the pyramid texts, some of the oldest religious writings on earth, the pelican appears as the goddess Henet. She's given an extraordinary title, Mother of the King. This wasn't just poetic. In Egyptian belief, the pharaoh literally became the son of Henet in death. One text reads, "The pelican is the king's mother and the king is her son." The open mouth that leads to heaven. The Egyptians saw something fascinating in the pelican's anatomy. That enormous beak and throat pouch looked exactly like a tomb shaft, the dark passage leading from the burial chamber up to daylight. In the coffin texts and Book of the Dead, the deceased prays, "The mouth of the pelican is opened for you. The mouth of the pelican is thrown open for you. The pelican has caused you to go out into the day to the place where you wish to be." The pelican wasn't just a symbol, it was a gatekeeper. Opening her mouth meant opening the tomb, releasing the soul to join the sun god's journey across the sky.
Oh, where were you, bird?
There's another side to Henet that's often forgotten. Egyptian texts describe her diving into the Nile to scoop up enemies of the sun god in her pouch, neutralizing the forces of chaos. One spell has the deceased transform into a pelican to terrify demons. A holy person falls into the Nile as a pelican. "Flee, flee, brute, lie down!" She's not just a gentle mother, she's a warrior protecting the nest and ensuring the sun rises tomorrow. This protective, militant aspect would later reappear in the Masonic Night degrees. Part 3. The Alchemist's Pelican, Making Gold and the Philosopher's Stone. As ancient Egyptian wisdom filtered through the Islamic world and into medieval Europe, alchemists adopted the pelican. But for them, it stopped being purely symbolic and became an actual piece of laboratory equipment. The Pelican Flask, a self-feeding machine. In the alchemist's laboratory, a pelican was a special glass vessel shaped like a pot-bellied bottle. Here's what made it unique. 2 glass tubes curved out from the top and bent back down to reconnect with the belly of the flask. When you heated the mixture inside, vapors would rise into the top, condense, then flow back down those curved tubes into the belly, like a bird bending its neck to feed itself. The substance was constantly bathing in its own distilled essence. This circulatory distillation perfectly embodied the alchemical principle. The philosopher's stone contains everything it needs for its own perfection. It's self-sufficient, feeding on itself to grow stronger. Sebation, feeding the baby stone. In the alchemical process of creating the philosopher's stone, there's a stage called sebation. This is where the pelican becomes crucial. After you've purified your materials into the white stone, pure but weak, like a newborn, you have to feed it to make it grow. The food is the red tincture which you drip back onto the white substance. As the white stone absorbs this blood, it turns red, the final stage called rubedo. This red stone is the pelican in her piety. It now has the power to transmute base metals into gold, just as the mother's blood transmits life. The Ripley Scroll, a visual manual. One of the most spectacular alchemical documents is the Ripley Scroll from the 1400s, a 6-foot-long illustrated manuscript showing the entire alchemical process. It begins with an image of Hermes holding a pelican flask. Inside the flask, you can see a toad and a dragon. The toad represents heavy earthly matter. The dragon represents the volatile spirit. In some versions, the dragon is biting itself and bleeding. This self-wounding dragon is the alchemical equivalent of the pelican. The volatile spirit must be fixed so its essence can transform the heavy earth into gold. The scroll shows the bird changing colours from black crow to white swan to red pelican. Each colour represents a stage in the great work. The Rosicrucians and the chemical wedding. By the 1600s, the mysterious Rosicrucian Brotherhood incorporated pelican symbolism into their manifestos. Their allegorical text, The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz, describes a mystical tower where a king and queen are killed, distilled, and their blood used to revive a small bird that grows progressively stronger. The pelican represents the moment when the reborn soul becomes strong enough to feed others. The transition from student to master, from becoming to being. Part 4. Freemasonry's Pelican, the Knight of the Eagle and Pelican. In the 1700s, these alchemical and Rosicrucian symbols were incorporated into the higher degrees of Freemasonry. The pelican found its ultimate expression in the 18th degree of the Scottish Rite, the Knight Rose Croix, the evolution of the degree. The degree started as explicitly Christian, with the pelican as a straightforward symbol of Christ. But in the mid-1800s, Albert Pike, one of Freemasonry's greatest philosophers, transformed it into something more universal. Pike kept the Christian interpretation as one layer but added others. He wrote that INRI could also mean Igne Natura Renovator Integra. By fire, nature is completely renewed, an alchemical motto. The pelican became a symbol not just of Jesus, but of nature itself and of philanthropic love. The ritual, from darkness to light. The initiation ceremony is a dramatic journey. The dark chamber. The candidate enters a room draped in black. The temple is destroyed, tools are broken, everything is lost. This represents the old law of severity and justice, symbolized by the eagle. It's the alchemical stage of nigrido, blackness, death, chaos. The journey. The candidate travels through symbolic darkness. The chamber of light. Suddenly everything changes. The candidate enters a brilliant red room. The new law is revealed, the law of love. Its symbol is the pelican. This is the alchemical rubedo, redness, life, transformation. The jewel, eagle and pelican united. The badge worn by Knight's Rose Croix perfectly captures the degree's philosophy. It's a compass open to 60 degrees. On one side, an eagle with outstretched wings, representing wisdom, justice, strength, and the sun, the masculine principle of ascent. On the reverse, a pelican feeding her 7 young, representing love, mercy, sacrifice, and the earth, the feminine principle of descent. Pike emphasized they're not opposites but partners. The pelican and eagle together are symbols of perfect wisdom and perfect devotedness. You need the eagle's wisdom to know the truth, and the pelican's love to sacrifice for it. The 7 young, a hidden meaning. Those 7 baby pelicans aren't random. Pike reveals they represent the 7 planets of ancient astronomy: Sun gold, Moon silver, Mars iron, Mercury mercury, Jupiter tin, Venus copper, Saturn lead. The blood flowing from the mother pelican is the spiritual force that the master must pour out to transform humanity's base nature into spiritual gold. The mystic supper. The degree includes a ceremonial meal of bread and wine, echoing the Christian Eucharist, but reinterpreted as a feast of fraternal love. The pelican presides as the symbol of shared substance. We're all drinking from the same source of life. At a Night Rose Craw funeral, the pelican represents continuity. The deceased brother's blood, his deeds and memory, continues to feed the lodge. It's a defiant statement against death through the legacy of love. Part 5, Modern Occultism, the Golden Dawn and Beyond. The 19th century occult revival breathed new life into pelican symbolism, especially through the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the Golden Dawn's rosy cross. In the Golden Dawn system, the pelican is associated with their inner order and with Tifareth, the sphere of beauty and the sun on the Kabbalistic tree of life. Members of this order wore a special medallion called the Rose Cross Laman, which often featured the pelican at the foot of the cross. The teaching was clear. After achieving enlightenment, you must return to Earth to pour out that light for humanity. Aleister Crowley and Thelema. Aleister Crowley, who passed through both the Golden Dawn and high-degree Freemasonry, transformed pelican imagery in his own magical system, Thelema. For Crowley, the pelican's self-wounding became an allegory for the crossing of the abyss, the mystical experience where an adept destroys their own ego completely. In his vision, the adept must pour every drop of their blood into the cup of Babylon to be reborn as a master of the temple. His ritual, called the Mass of the Phoenix, includes making a cake of light with the magician's own blood, a literal enactment of the pelican myth. Understanding the pattern, what the pelican really means. Looking across all these traditions, Egyptian, Christian, alchemical, Masonic, occult, we see a consistent pattern. The pelican always mediates between 2 states, life and death, from Henet guiding souls through the tomb to the physiologist mother reviving dead chicks. Volatile and fixed, from the alchemical vessel circulating vapour back into liquid to the marriage of opposites in the philosopher's stone. Self and other, from biological parenting to Masonic philanthropy to mystical self-sacrifice. But here's the crucial secret that many miss. The pelican doesn't die in the process. The alchemical pelican circulates, the blood returns to the source. The Masonic pelican represents inexhaustible generosity, not martyrdom. It's a fountain that fills itself by emptying itself. This is why the symbol has survived for millennia. It captures a profound truth. Real power becomes sterile unless it's grounded in the willingness to give yourself away. But true giving doesn't deplete you. It completes a circuit that nourishes both giver and receiver. The stages. A quick reference. In alchemy, the pelican represents the colour progression. Black crow, death and decay of the base material. White swan, purification and separation. Red pelican, perfection, feeding the stone with blood-red tincture. Phoenix, final resurrection and immortality. In the mystery traditions, the pelican represents the portal, the open mouth that leads from death to rebirth. The sacrifice, grace overcoming sin through blood. The circulation, matter feeding on itself to perfect itself. The balance, love tempering justice. The crossing, the ego destroyed and reborn. Conclusion, the hieroglyph of creative sustenance. The pelican in her piety is ultimately the supreme symbol of creative sustenance, not destruction, but transformation through sacrifice that renews rather than depletes. It teaches that transformation requires a wound that heals, a death that births life, a giving that receives. The pelican shows us that true mastery lies not in ascending and staying elevated, but in ascending and then returning to pour out what you've learned. The blood always returns, the circle always closes. The fountain fills itself. This is why a symbol from a misunderstood bird behavior on the Nile became one of the most enduring images in Western spirituality, because it captures something true about how life, consciousness, and love actually work.